Merry Christmas to you, our dear viewers. I trust that as you're watching this episode of Body Garage, you're enjoying your festivities with your loved ones. But even as we continue with that, we will continue with conversation about health. And one of the things that really influences human health is food. What we eat, what we consume every day has a great part to play as far as your health is concerned. So welcome to Body Garage, the art of well-being, and I am your host, Dr. Chepsi, and my guests here again. This is the third time I think we are doing this, right?
Yeah.
Karibu sana. Starting from my close left.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Chepsi, and I have TV47 fraternity. I think we need to partner with you. You've been so good and kind with us, and as a union, we are grateful. To our audience, my name is Brown Ashira. I'm the National Secretary General for Kenya Environmental Health and Public Health Practitioners Union, a key stakeholder in prevention and prevention in this country. We represent public health officers and technicians in the entire country, both here and also maybe outside. We have our colleagues who are practicing outside. We also do represent them. And our unique position is that we do prevention.
Prevention and promotion.
And promotion of health.
Yeah.
And it's critically important. Food is very critical, and we are happy to be here to dive into this hot topic, because they say you are what you eat. Food defines who you are. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Dr.
Do you come from Western Kenya?
Yeah, definitely I'm from
Western Kenya.
Yeah.
I think in the people of Western Kenya who come from Bungoma County, where my mom comes from,
Yes.
There is a saying, I will say it in Luya. They say that sie munda si sutasemro, yani ya tumbo
Yes.
carries what is in the stomach carries what is in the head.
Correct.
To some extent, I think that's true. Yes, Ken, karibu.
And another thing maybe to add,
Yeah.
in Luya land we say, doesn't matter what, eat fast. So it doesn't matter what you're going through, you have to eat fast. So food is a medicine
You
in
have
Western.
to remember to eat.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Ken, karibu.
Very well said. I don't know where to begin from after that nice introduction. But thank you for inviting us here another time. I think the next time we should switch positions and we interview you now.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, my name is Kenneth Ogendo. I'm a public health specialist and consultant, and I do that by day, and by night I'm a fitness and health enthusiast, very keen on lifestyle, social health, mental health, and physical health. And I also blog and I also vlog. Afia Fit 360. We want people to be wholesome physically, mentally, and socially. For purposes of today's discussion, I come here as the chairman of the Kenya Environmental Health and Public Health Practitioners Union, where I partner very closely with our SG here. And our key role is to bring out health activism through schooled activism and not heckling, through data and storytelling, just to make sure Kenyans understand what is food safety and why it is important. Like you said, you are what you eat. And if you said that lawyer saying that has a connection between the stomach and the brain, there's a man who says, as a man thinketh, so is he. And if you say, yeah, what you eat. So we really need to understand what we ingest, what we partake with our mouths, how safe is it? And we are here to talk about
that. Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. It's really a pleasure to have you guys do this time and again. But it's really important for us to look at these things. So today we are talking about food and food safety. You know, and we come from quite diverse cultures, but all of us are agreeing that food is important. So if we can start right there with the basic stuff, what is food safety?
Yeah, thank you so much once again. I think food safety simply means There are those processes, or rather the conditions, that that prevent food from being contaminated. You must be able to understand that food, once contaminated, can be a source of a lot of illnesses. So those processes, or rather the conditions that prevent food from getting contaminated, is what we call, in simple terms, food safety. And as public health officers and technicians in this country, that is our mantra. Our mantra is to ensure that we make sure that food that the people consume, or rather the public consume, is safe, devoid of microorganisms, bacteria, parasites, and other viruses, so that we do not exhibit other underlying conditions, health conditions.
Right.
Yes.
So there are processes, steps, and checklists here and there to just ensure that what we are going to consume is fit, if I can use that term, right? Ken?
I can add the same. Food safety, it's a science of ensuring that what we consume is good for our bodies, like he has mentioned. And we have come up with very interesting mechanisms that ensure that the food we take, you know, when you look at the food supply chain, there are very many players on the food chain. From importers, you know, we are a net importing country. We are yet to start exporting as much as we would want. So from importation to exportation to processing, manufacturing, all the way to the food that is served in the hotels, like where we are right now, and the food that is served on the dining table in your household. So it's the food chain from the plant. That's why we are here to talk about farming practices. They have an influence on the kind of food you are eating, from the farmer's point of view to transportation, storage, that's where aflatoxin comes in, all the way to how you cook it. Do you wash hands? Do you wash the meat and all the other foods that you eat, all the way to your mouth? So it's the entire continuum. And within those processes and those persons or peoples involved, there could be a chance of slack, and that's where diseases come in, including the environment. When you talk about pollution, for example, you remember back in the day when GOtv exposed the lead poisoning issue in Owino Uru. You remember that time? We had lead poisoning in the environment, and the people in Owino Uru were ingesting lead without knowing, because there was a company that was manufacturing batteries within that community. And many environmental activists, public health officers were involved in exposing that. And now we know that anything that you grow in the environment can bring upon heavy metals to your table, and you innocently eat it. You also know we have mercury that was in our sugar the other day.
Is that something that is just a story, or, you know,
Yeah.
when you tell somebody outside there that there's mercury in sugar, where is it? We can't see it.
So, you know, with your naked eyes, you might not see this. Like the innocent women who are getting miscarriages and abortions due to lead poisoning, the stunting of the growth of the children in Owino Uru, including reduced cognitive capabilities just because of ingesting these chemicals, they were innocent, they didn't know. And even we are unsuspecting Kenyans who could be consuming so many other things that we don't know. Just the other day, we saw a report that was saying 77% of all the foods, or rather of all the plants that our farmers are planting, have been exposed to pesticides and fertilizers.
That's in Kenya?
Yes.
Or
Yes,
it's a
yeah,
global...
it was a report. Yeah,
it's a Kenyan...
77% of the pesticides that we are using are not supposed to be used, or rather they are hazardous. They are not good for the environment, they're not good for our bodies. And 44% of those pesticides and fertilizers have been banned in the European Union. So you realize we are innocent Kenyans who go to the market, you buy your vegetables and you go and cook for your family, but you do not know whether the farmer used the right pesticides. You are not aware whether the farmer used the right fertilizer. You're not aware which cow or which, whether the cow was treated with antibiotics. We are taking antibiotics when you're already okay. Through the milk and the meats we have, if those animals were treated and the meat and the milk was sold before time, because you have to wait for the shelf life to reduce. So these are the things we want to tell Kenyans to be wary of, and we have got messages for the Kenyans and the government as well.
Let's pick the conversation right where you have started, right? So there are different stages where the food we consume can be contaminated. Can we talk about those levels, starting from production? So we are talking the farms, transportation, then there is, maybe it gets to the store, the factories, different stages, yeah. Let's start the conversation right there, the different stages where our food gets contaminated and how.
Yeah, thank you. Can I proceed?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, maybe before I go delve into that, I think Kenya is undergoing a transition. There's a nutritional transition that this country is actually undergoing from the traditional food that we used to, that are protective. You know, there are foods, Daktari, you could consume, maybe your mother could give you. You realize when you consume those foods, they enrich your immunity. You become so strong. Like, I remember when I was growing up, we used to even to go and play in when rain is raining. You play and without even a shirt, without anything, and you are there. You can scare homa in short, because what we used to consume by then. I remember we used to be given porridge in the morning, the brown porridge in the morning. You wake up, your mother tells you, take 1 cup of porridge in the brown porridge. After that, you go outside there, you take viazi and all those things. Those are the things that kept us going up this far. But I can say Kenya is undergoing that, not only in Kenya, also in the entire Africa. We are undergoing that nutritional transition from those foods now to the Western diet. Western diet is doesn't have fiber, full of calories, there's a lot of fats. No wonder you can see what's actually is eating us. And that's why no wonder I said we are what we eat. Now going back to what you've said, food contamination occurs differently. Like right from the where you stay, from the farm to where it's finally consumed. Like for example, if I can give an example from the farm. When you're harvesting, for example, let me give an example. Like for example, in Abattoir, give an example, you unachinja nyama, and you fail to slaughter that the meat. You fail to carry that meat the way it's supposed to be carried. There's a procedure to carry meat. For example, you must be carried in a nice, clean transportation, whatever, from the slaughterhouse to where it's to the butchery, to all those places. But if you look at what is happening, for example, the motorbikes, look at even the way the motorbikes, even the motorbikes that carry the meat, look at those baskets that carry those meats. You look at them, then you even wonder whether that is meat or not. So in the process of transportation, you realize that meat or other food get contaminated, and maybe you are likely, when we sold to the members of the public, when you consume it, people get diarrhea or something of the sort. So it's important that right from the place of production to transportation to storage, even storing of that food. There are people who store food in very unhygienic conditions. Like you go to some hotels, you realize that they store foods on the floors, they store foods in very dirty containers. They don't even, the food is stored on the floor, they don't store in pallets and what have you. Then in the process, you get that food is being contaminated, then up to where it's supposed to be. So it's important and it's imperative to note that how you handle that food is critically important, so that those germs or those bacteria don't get access to food, and make sure that that food is safe.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you. We take a break, and when we're back, we just continue with the same conversation. So stay tuned. When we're back, we pick up from where we have just left. Welcome back to Body Garage, the art of well-being. Now we are talking about food, and we took a break when we are looking at how the food that we consume at different stages, how they get consumed. And Brown, you talked about the meats, the slaughtering, and the transportation, and the storage, right? So back to you, Ken. Let's assume we are consuming food that is grown, that is from crops. We start from the farms. They are harvested, they are transported and stored somewhere before they go to the wholesaler, to the hotels, or even to the households, and they are consumed. All these steps, what is happening at each step that is putting this food at risk?
So like we had previously mentioned, that there are critical stages that we have to look at. And storage is one fundamental area that we have to be very keen as public health experts and also Kenyans at large. We have aflatoxin. Aflatoxin is a fungal carcinogen, can actually cause cancer. And back in the day, you must have heard of what the media called it then, the white alert. And we have discovered that many Kenyans have been taking aflatoxin without knowing. And that's why the government needs to really invest in sampling, in food sampling, and as well as water sampling for other conversations. So when you look at the entire landscape of food safety, the places that are most at risk is what the farmer is using to apply as fertilizer or as pesticide. And if it's animals, what antibiotics are they using? And are they patient enough to make sure that the shelf life of those drugs reduces within the bodies of those animals before slaughtering them or selling that milk? So you find we have got critical control points. So there is a, I don't want to get technical, but let me just mention there is a principle we call HACCP, Hazardous Analysis Critical Control Points. When you go to any industry, say even where people produce bread, within the factory, there are places where you must make sure that all the people handling bread in an industry, before they take it to the market, within the manufacturing plant, they have ensured we have hygiene and sanitary conditions. So we have got critical control points within every sector where food is produced. So from the farming sector all the way to the storage, transportation, as mentioned, the way we preserve flowers, making sure that they are refrigerated before they are sold. Some foods like fish has to be refrigerated. You are transporting fish from Lake Victoria and you want that fish to get to Isiolo. The mode of transportation is key. The mode of refrigeration is very important. The temperatures at which you store that meat is crucial. And this not only happens within the larger market industry, but also in your house. So you find you have got these critical control points at all levels. In your household, you have to make sure that you apply the principle called fast in, fast out. Everybody could be having a fridge, those who can afford. And the food that went fast in needs to be fast out, and not the other way around. Because some of us are consuming Clostridium botulinum. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, that is a bacteria that can easily grow when you put rice, for example. If you cook rice and let it stay for many hours outside and you want to eat it the following day, chances of you getting and infection are very high. But when you eat that rice the same day, then you are luckier. In fact, there is a research that was produced back in the day by the government of Japan. In 1921, they came up with the Rice Control Act because they realized that the Japanese were taking rice and they could even store it in the fridge. But if it went beyond 24 hours, mold was forming on the rice. And this mold was linked to heart problems within particular populations in that country. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is the way food is processed, the way food is stored, the way food is also warmed before eating. Hata ukienda kwa kibanda, mami ama baba uko nyumbani, make sure hiyo chapati ni moto. And make sure that even madondo ni moto kabisa. What I'm trying to say is we have to be careful to inform the public to take care of themselves. And if you can afford foods like rice, cook the same day and eat the same day. Don't store. So just cook what is enough. There's no need of cooking so much and you want to keep eating it every day, even if you have a fridge. You know, aflatoxin also survives in peanuts. I see so many Kenyans eating food from various sources. Even hawkers are selling peanuts. You should have a keen eye. You look at the kind of peanuts you're eating. If you find they are discolored, if you find they have got mold, then you should not eat those peanuts. But sometimes...
In simple language, peanut, you mean?
Peanut in njugu. Njugu. Ukienda kule sokoni mtaani, you need to be careful on what kind of peanut you are eating. And sometimes when we respect hawkers are also looking for work, we respect their job. But also as a Kenyan, you have to be careful to observe the quality of the peanuts you are eating, the quality of maize that you are going to buy for your children, and especially if unaenda kwa kusiaga, if you know if you go to grind maize, make sure that it is stored well in a dry place and it has got no mold. And that's the much Kenyans can do. You know, Daktari, I must tell you that Kenyans are walking by the grace of God because some of these challenges cannot be fought by just your naked eye. And that's why we want the government to invest in public health surveillance systems. We need people to be walking around sampling all the peanuts, njugu ambazo watu wanakula, sampling the maize at the port, sampling all the foods that we eat so that we make sure that we are checking for aflatoxin, we are checking for sodium metabisulfite. You remember the red alert?
Yeah, so we will talk about the red alert later, but let's talk about the white alert, which was about the aflatoxin, right? Mainly in grains. So grains are one of the staple food in Kenya. The maize consumed in different forms, mainly ugali. And we have sorghum, millet, porridge largely. And we bring wheat also, the chapatis and the related. All these, somehow they are produced at the farm, they are transported. So what should be the normal process, if you can take us briefly? Steps from the farm to transportation, storage until we get to the table.
So, like I mentioned in the beginning, make sure that you have used the right fertilizers, the right pesticides. Make sure you have the right storage. Once you harvest, you have raised the granary in a way that rodents and mice are not able to come to the granary area if you are a subsistence farmer. But for those who are mechanized and they are doing advanced farming, they should have warehouses that are well structured, well aerated to make sure that we do not have humid conditions within those warehouses where they store the maize or the rice or the wheat. And aeration and dry conditions are critical to make sure that mold does not form. Because aflatoxin survives in places which are damp and humid. And once that is done, then you are assured that you have protected many Kenyans from the propensity of consuming aflatoxin. And as much as the government can make sure that that is done, and Kenyans are also going to make sure that is done at their own levels, we still need to have adequate sampling tools or technological sampling materials or gadgets that can always test the amount of the humid air we have in those warehouses or in the storage facilities and make sure that they are at the right levels. And this calls for multidisciplinary actions by all the members of government and authorities. We have the pesticide control board, we have the fertilizer and animal food control board, we have the Kenya Dairy Board, for example, all the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service. All these people need to be brought in together, and I know at the last segment we shall talk about it, so that we make sure that in every warehouse, in every production or storage, we are ensuring that we have the right health standards for storage. Again, transportation is critical. And the scientific term I used, the hazardous analysis critical control points, needs to be enhanced in the production where you're going to now come up with the flour or the bread or soda or whatever beverage or food you want to produce en masse. Make sure that there's enough water, the workers put on clean gumboots, they are well dressed. So those are things that our public health officers do where there's an industry. You go to Kitengela and other places where people are doing manufacturing, you'll find we have very vibrant public health officers who go to those companies to make sure that the processes are adhered to. We have the Public Health Act, we have the CAP 242, we have the CAP 254, the Food, Drugs and Substances Act, and even now the government is coming up with a Foods and Feed Safety Control Bill, which we are so much invested in, and we were there with our SG to talk to Dr. Pukose to see how best can we bring all these multidisciplines to make sure that whatever is consumed from the farm, from the dairies, is observed during transportation. Like he said, we should not see goats and cows being transported by boda, for example. We want to see that there is adherence to the highest standards of health across board, and bring in the agricultural extension workers. Because how will a farmer, Shebsi, how will a farmer know that I am using the right chemical? Most of our farmers require the agricultural extension officers
to do the education.
to do that. The same way we have the community health extension officers who ensure that we are looking at primary health care in the household, we also expect the Ministry of Agriculture to have a robust extension service, which has been there for a while, but now I'm not sure to what extent are they doing what they need to do to bring in all those agronomic practices and the health practices together. So this is what we are lacking in this country.
Which includes them educating on the appropriate fertilizers to use or any other chemical and storage. Because I think we might assume farmers know how to store their harvest, but it's likely possible that they don't know. Yeah.
Maybe to to add on what Chairman has said.
Sorry, let's just proceed to take a break and then we come back. And so we're going to take a break, and when we're back, we pick the conversation. Welcome back to Body Garage, the Art of Wellbeing. I'm your host, Dr. Chepsi, and we are talking about food. Before we took a break, we were talking about aflatoxin and brown ashira. You wanted to really reiterate something about that.
Yeah, I think when I began my conversation, I began by saying Kenya is undergoing a transition from the traditional to the Western way of doing things. And by so saying, I mean, if you go to the interior, those wale watu wanasema watu wa mashambani, most of them, by the way, their standards of living are very low. And there's a likelihood that wakati ninavuna mahindi, if I happen to harvest my maize right now, there's a likelihood that I might not be able to dry it to the recommended standards. I store my maize without drying it properly. That's why you realize that there's a lot of moisture. That maize does not dry properly. I put it in my bag, I put it in my store without meeting the moisture content is still there and what have you. And that's why you realize most of the time such things like aflatoxin thrive because you need to dry your maize properly. Like what you said about aeration, even if you have a store, when you are at home, you know we are appealing to a common person. Kale kasto kako kadogo kale kako nyumbani, weka mahindi na unaweka mahindi kwa njia ambayo inafaa. You make sure you dry it first, then you store it properly until such a time that you feel that you want to eat.
Just comment briefly on use of chemicals to preserve maize.
Yeah, I want to say for a fact that as farmers, you must use chemicals the way they're supposed to be used. Do not overdo, do not overuse those chemicals because those chemicals like organic farming, you know, initially we used to have organic farming and now we are talking about inorganic farming. Those chemicals, there's a threshold, there's a limit. Do not use them, do not overuse them beyond the required limit so that they are supposed to serve as a specific, those chemicals are supposed to serve a specific function. One, they're supposed to preserve that food or rather that maize out of pests and what have you. So if you put them in beyond the recommended threshold, there's a likelihood that when you are ukienda kusiaga pale kwa tingatinga, when you are consuming, you're also consuming them, and therefore they end up building up in our systems and they end up affecting our health. So just stick to the recommended ones. And like you said, we are lacking agricultural extension officers. You know, initially we used to have these guys move around with motorbikes and they advise our people on what is supposed to be done. Let us stick to what is supposed to be done. The chemicals should be within the recommended threshold so that when we're preserving them, we're able to use them when they're within whatever is supposed to be.
Yeah. All right, let's talk. You were mentioning something about urban settings now.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about something urban because we are in urban setting. If you go to this food establishment, most of them, you know, there's a checklist that we usually use as inspectors, as public health inspectors or as sanitary inspectors. And most of them, the checklist, you look at, for example, the structural condition of the building.
So you're talking in terms of like, if you visit, let's say, Kibandaski,
Kibanda or a hotel like of this nature.
You know,
yes.
Where people go to eat.
Correct.
You're at work, you quickly jump in for a quick meal
yes.
or a cup of tea at 10 a.m.
Yes.
on the afternoon.
Yes.
So you are taking tea, mandazi, sausage,
Yes.
something like that.
Something like that. What I'm saying is that even during preparation of these hotels, they need to adhere to those conditions. Because you realize, for example, I want to give an example of chips because those are fast food that are prepared in town. Yeah. We reuse those oils being reused much more than what is expected. You realize that when you reuse those fats and oils, what we are doing, this becomes carcinogenic. They become cancerous. Those fats become rancid, and you realize most of the time that most people in the urban setting, we are developing a lot of cancers which can be avoided. So when you are using your oils, we recommend do not reuse past 3 times or 2 times.
The cooking oil, the
cooking oils,
okay.
The cooking oils. And number 2, make sure that when you're preparing food, you store it, you prepare it in the right temperatures because germs usually thrive in temperatures that any food that do not have the right temperatures. So for safe food, make sure you prepare it in the right temperatures. When you are serving it, serve it in the right temperatures, and you also serving using clean things, clean utensils, and maintain what is supposed to be maintained so that we are in a position to eat, we avoid a lot of contamination.
One of the leaders from the KEBS mentioned publicly on national television that, you know, you are on your own. We do not have the capacity to go out and sample each and every food that you are picking from the supermarket, right? So I mean, what are we going to do? What are some of the things I can do at personal level if I'm going to buy food? What should I look out for?
But it's a fact, KEBS do not have the capacity to do, their work ends at the standards level. But in this country we have authorities like the public health department, the veterinary department, what you say about the KFIS and what have you, who have the mandate to check on the food and all those parameters that are supposed to be in food, how that food is handled, including sampling, including testing. The public health labs are here. So we have a mandate and authority. And all, each and every entity in this country operates on an act of parliament. You cannot go, or rather go beyond your mandate. Like in public health, our mandate is strictly within CAP 242 and the CAP 254. That's the Public Health Act and the Food, Drugs and Chemical Substances Act. KEBS, the same, they have their act. The veterinary department have their act, the pharmacy have their act, and the doctors are the same. So each and every person is guided within his or her own act. So the parameters, the conditions are enforced differently by different players in the same field.
That is true, but what can I do as an individual when I go to the supermarket? What are some of the things I should look out for myself?
Yeah, there are basic things like if you take bread, I want to take bread as an example. If you look at bread, there are basic things like the date of expiries, the date of manufacture, the batch numbers, those things, the ingredients. There are people who don't, for example, use sugar. So the reason why it's clear in this country that each and every food item should be labeled properly, so that information is available for the consumer, for the person who's consuming to look at it, because you're able to see it without looking at even the soda. Look at it, these things like this. If it's expired, you're able to know that it's expired, and therefore you cannot be able to buy it. And if it's milk, look there, this milk is not okay, you're able to buy it or not to buy it. So it is simple. It should be written in language that is actually understandable, readable to every person. That's why every food in this country, even if you go to the supermarket, it's supposed to be written, even if it's Chinese, it should be translated in language that you're able to understand. Yes.
All right, thank you. Please, as we come to the conclusion.
You have to, as a Kenyan, when you're buying food in the supermarket, if you don't see, or even in the butchery, if you don't see flies,
or at the standalone, I'm buying kachumbari.
Yes. Then start asking yourself, what is wrong with this meat if it is not attracting natural organisms? If you go to buy sukuma wiki, mama mboga, and you find mboga zake, there is not even a small worm or an insect that is hovering around the very lush and flashy vegetables, then you need to ask yourself some questions. Could mean that sukuma wiki or whichever vegetable has a lot of chemicals. So the more natural ripening you see, the better. Even bananas, there are some unscrupulous banana sellers who apply calcium carbide on bananas, and to make them ripen, and that is a carcinogen. It is linked to cancer. Just like if you consume sausages every day, and someone is consuming bananas that have calcium carbide, you are both exposed to carcinogens, because sausage has nitrates, and processed meats have nitrates, which you should not eat all the time. Maybe once in a long time. Mutura is healthy, but you have to look at the hands of the one who is cutting mutura. If his hands are going to other places I may not mention on public television, and he's cutting the mutura for you, chances are you are also at risk. So the mutura seller should also be in a clean environment with a nice lab coat or nice white coat, and with even if it's using the plastic gloves, the plastic papers as a way of protecting you from E. coli. You know, E. coli is basically eating feces, yeah? You go to the toilet, don't wash your hands, you cut the mutura for me, you infect me. And then you start saying, ile mutura yule jamani mbaya. Hapana, maybe you never wash your hands, or the one who was selling the mutura did not wash their hands. So those are small things we need to be aware of. Let's put our mouth where our money.
All right, thank you so much, Ken. Back to Brown.
Yes.
As we come to the close, maybe you have your parting shot to the people of Kenya as far as food safety is concerned.
Thank you so much, Daktari, for inviting us. My parting shot as the Secretary General for Public Health Union in this country is that every 7th June of every year we celebrate World Food Safety Day. And we want, as we celebrate next year, I want to pose a challenge to all the manufacturing industries, to all the franchises, all the hoteliers, all the food industries to consider employing more public health officers. By the way, there has been a proven case of a return of investment. We want to see PHOs in Java, we want to see PHOs in Quickmart, we want to see PHOs in Bidco, and all these major hotels, so that they're employed to take care of food and food issues. And last but not least, this is a challenge to the government, the Kenyan government. If you look at the WHO recommended ratios, that is the world recommended ratios for the PHOs against the population, we actually still below the recommended ratios. So I also challenge the government, please employ public health officers to match those ratios so that we can be able to mitigate all these food safety issues and also bring down the disease burden in this country.
We have come to the end of our show today, and I trust that you have learned several things about food safety and you are going to implement those practices in your daily life, and also every time you go to eat out something, you will be on the lookout. And to the government and the leaders and the business owners have been challenged to ensure food safety is adhered to, because it's more than food, it's about the human health. I have been your host, Dr. Chepsi. This has been Body Garage, the art of well-being. We will see you next Thursday.